Welcome. All thy blessed through this video, wash through me, now I know. For the wisdom that come is through me. Thy truth we come, now we see. Welcome to the podcast. It's I would call this a self-reflection podcast. I'm going to be talking about some topics, subjects, unscripted. This is just a conversation with me through essentially the understanding of the subjects I have, okay? We're going to embrace topics on religion, life, purpose, mechanics of the universe and stuff of that nature, okay? You know, I can get really talkative and really just quick, so let's go. So the first one is source. I'm going to be talking about source. What is source? What is it? Okay? So you could say source is that it encompasses everything. It encompasses all. Source is essentially, you could call it the prime energy that everything is made of. Like how atoms, everything physical is made from atoms. Okay, but before atoms could even take place, atoms was formed from energy. This energy, you could call it source, the Father, God, Brahma, you could call it whatever name in a hierarchy you want to say, but all the names essentially are meaning the same thing. Creator that created everything. So you must understand source is everything. Every person you look at is a reflection of source. This is what happens in the spiritual community that people forget and don't realize, that just because you became awakened and that you understand these things about source, about yourself, about your true nature, which is divine nature, that you say, oh, I can now see the divine in me, so I am the divine. We are all merely reflections of source. Buddha, Jesus, Mohammed, all the prophets were different variations and reflections of source. I would see people quote in the Bible and say, it is stated that no one has seen God. You must understand the deep nature to that statement, because you can't see God, but you can. You cannot see God in a finite form, in only one form, and say that's God. Because even if God came as a person, God is all other people as well as that person. But that individual may be able to tap into the consciousness or express the divinity of God at greater degrees than someone else. It's like someone's connection with God could be level 2 and another person could be level 10. They're both gods, but the level 10 can embrace God, understand God, and experience God at greater degrees and levels. And you may say, oh, why is that? Well, God chooses who he allows to encompass, embody, and express the divine nature of himself to higher degrees. He chose Jesus, and Jesus was a great high level reflection of source that came down to the world. So you must understand, source is it encompasses everything. It's an all totality energy that everything is made of. Source began as the void. It was in the void. What that means is the void, it means that it was a singular energy, that nothing else was created because it was only one universal energy. Meaning, it was at one state, and there was nothing different from the state. You could go 100 miles, 1 billion miles away, you'll find the same thing in all corners. There was only one energy, the void. From the void, now this, it's really hard these concepts goes to infinite and eternal values. But within the void, somehow information was created. That source, God's source was so powerful, it actually created separation in the form of information. When information was first introduced to the energetic field, the energy of source, it can now create separations. It can create other gods. It can create other laws. It can create other realities. Information created separation. That is what the Holy Spirit is. It's a reflection of God in the form of wisdom and knowledge, but it created separation. You must understand. Then, once information was introduced, two things happened. Source is sentient now, because now it understood that it's everything by it creating something else. And then once it created something else, everything that it creates, everything that is created from source energy, also has that energy within them because they are that energy. That's like if something is made from electricity. If the form of a dragon is made in electricity, right? And it looks like a dragon, breathes like a dragon, can even talk like a dragon. It's still from the electronic properties, and it would have the same properties of that electricity as just normal electricity. We have the power of God within us, and we're able to use it divinely. We have inner divine power within us granted to us by source. So you must understand, okay? You must really understand your true nature is divine. You were created in the likeness of source. Source is the energy that created everything. And keep in mind, our physical finite world doesn't even equal 0.01% of the world that exists. There's a spiritual element to this world. There's truthfully a spiritual element that is created. The conceptual realm, fiction, non-fiction, both are one. God is fiction and non-fiction. Source is non-fiction, non-fiction. So you must understand, all the laws that are created, all the ideas that are created, everything you see around you, all your experiences, all your feelings, your partner, love, hate, all those are different reflections of God's possibilities manifested into this world. Understand it and know the truth. That is the truth. Source is so many things, but it's nothing and everything at the same time. By it being not one thing, but everything that you see and all the possibilities that also extend to the very thing you see. God is that person when they were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, period. And they're that person who made different choices. Multiverse. God is infinite and has eternal properties. I'm pretty sure God said, didn't I make all things good and evil? To say good and evil, to not say physical things, to say good and evil, principalities. God has created far more than the physical realm. Source Creator has infinite and eternal properties that extend continuously, and all its creations can also extend their influence continuously. Energetic information. Source is also, keep in mind, Source is intelligent. It does have desires. It desired for us to be created. You may say God is perfect. God is perfect and imperfect at the same time. Divine autonomy. He's all things at the same time, but he's also nothing because he's everything. So you understand, source is an energy that's sentient, that exists within it all information that will ever exist, all timelines, all possibilities, and all truth. There can be no lies in source. For all things that all will be or can even be pondered about came from source energy. So it is the foundational base primal energy of all creation that desires many things, because all desires come from source. So know this, welcome, because you exist in the world of source. For there is no escape, but there is only interaction, influence, development, advancement. Know thy true self, and you will see God. Moving on to this. Are all gods source? Because people argue, they say, Jesus is only God. He is the only God. When Jesus said, I and the Father are one. Why would he need to say that if he was just God? He could just say, I am God in the story. No. It was that he understood that he was a reflection of God. He was a variation of God's glory. And he understood his true nature. When you realize your true nature of divine, you start to understand that you are divine. You are a hidden God within you. Or you realize God exists within. So you know you and the Father are connected. You come from the same primal energy of source. And you're able to direct it. And people would say, well, how about Allah? Or Brahma, or Krishna, or Buddha. And they say all these different variations. You must understand anything that was created could only be created from God. Buddha cannot exist without the possibility of Buddha existing before the physical manifestation. That means all gods, Zeus, Norse, Celtic, Aztec, you can go to any religion and the one common denominator is of a higher power that does exist. Of course, different forms of gods are manifested and represented based upon the understanding and culture of those humans who understood God in whatever way. This is why we see people who see God in nature, or see God in the sky, or see God within themselves. It's all different variations of the same thing. We must come to accept that just because the Quran is different from the New Testament, or because Krishna is different from Jesus, or the Egyptian gods, look, they are all different paths, different variations of truth that came in different forms that lead to one destination, which is Source, the creator of all gods, of all things. So you must understand that the gods themselves, they're real. They do exist. And, you can pray to them, you can connect to them, you can read their story, you can have a relationship with them, but you can have a relationship with Jesus, but not Krishna. You can have a relationship with Buddha, but not the other gods. But you cannot not have a relationship with Source. For every God you would choose, every person you would look up to, every interaction of a character comes from the base energy of Source. And not only that, the information of that character to be manifested into this world only came about because it existed through Source energetic information. That's what you must understand. All these arguments in the world on who's right, who's correct, which God is, they're irrelevant. You are arguing about a surface level issue. You must understand, how did the gods themselves come to be? How could Zeus become a character and embody a character through us? People would say, man made God. Man made God, but we did not make ourselves. That is a very interesting statement. We made God, but we also didn't make ourselves. Doesn't make sense. But you know what does make sense is, in a sense, they're right. We made God because we realized the truth of the world and the truth within ourselves. There are people who have direct relations with these gods, direct relations, and because they witness the power of their God or of the figure they worship, they think it's truth. Realize that everyone has a different truth. Buddha found truth through his experience. Jesus found truth and was sent here for a specific task for his experience based on the Father. Prophets are Moses. They're awakened to do certain things for the Father, but the number one thing encounter is that they realize that there's a higher power that exists in this world. And it doesn't matter if you interact with other gods and they don't have the same power. And people would say, well, I called upon, they would talk about the example where they worship Baal in the Bible, the god Baal, and nothing would happen, but they worshiped Yahweh, and then fire rose out. You must understand, Source creates all these circumstances. The only God that you truly worship, no matter which God you choose, is Source. What do I mean when I say God, Source, has infinite and eternal properties? Okay. No. Source is eternal, meaning that It always has been, always will be. The Alpha and the Omega. Okay, that's number one. Number two, it's infinite because the information, the energetic informational properties it has is to continuously expand itself to different properties of existence continuously forever. What I mean by this, earth, air, fire, and water, those four basic elements has created so many, we have had as humans and as a force of nature, they have created so many different variations of truth. You understand? Earth, air, fire, and water. Earth, we have created chairs out of granite. Air, we have created air that tastes a certain way. Raspberry air, clear air. Water, we have created juice. We have created medicine. We have created so many different variations of liquid. And fire, there's not many you can create with fire, but chemical reaction, heat, energy, so many different variations of uses and properties we can have when it comes to those four basic elements. And then when we interact with them, when we create fire and water, we get steam. You know, so it's like that is the basic understanding of the complete variation of God. It will continuously multiply its information from simple to complex, continuously forever, getting more and more complex, causing havoc on the universe. Because the information we're manifesting into the world, it has to become more complex. We can't go from basic arithmetic to algebra and then back to basic arithmetic unless we have like a devastation happen to us. But if we're flourishing and growing as a species, we are manifesting information from the conceptual world into our world. You must understand that. And it will only get more complex because you yourself, humans, we are continuously getting more and more complex. We absorb, interact with higher degrees of information that is of greater degrees than the last generation. The generation now is heavens more advanced than a generation before. Must understand that. Eternal, God is eternal because energy is eternal. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. It merely is forever but changes forms. God is energy at the most primal level. Then when you interact with it at a deeper level, it's energetic information. That means the information that we interact with in our world has to exist forever, and based upon the evolutionary degree of advancement and development, it has to be infinite because we keep creating more and more things. We will not get to a point of human ingenuity or reality ingenuity and say we cannot make anything else. There is nothing else to be made. You can make more colors. You can make more expressions. You can create more ideas. It's never ending and only based upon us. The energetic information, the energy is eternal. The energy is infinite when you input information, energetic information. That means that you, the totality of you who is watching this video, you exist forever merely because your energy has been specified, individualized into information that creates the totality of your existence. And this is true for anything. And that is saved within God. For God knew you before you were born. How could God know you before you were born? The energy, the energetic information existed within him, and he merely allowed your manifestation to take place. The seen to the unseen to the seen. Does God judge? That's very interesting. Does God judge? Because a lot of people say, I sinned, or I need forgiveness for my sin, or, or I have guilt within me. Will God accept me? I would ask a question to people and say, if you stood before God right now, would that be a blessing? Will that be a curse? And a lot of people say that they're not ready to stand before God. because what he expects of you is too high, that they're not willing to work with those diameters, with those the way to worship God is a very narrow road, and they know that they're sinners. They know that they can't compete with the expectations of God. But that's very interesting. Does God judge? I would say no. It's not that God judges you. No. I don't hear that God is sitting there saying if people are going to go to heaven or hell. There are certain figures and characters in mythology and in religious beliefs that is stated to cast judgment over your heart. But think about it. Are they casting judgment on your heart? Who knows your heart? God and yourself. When they put your heart on those scales, it's your heart they're measuring. It's your heart. It's what you have done. It's the guilt within your own heart. It's your own self-acceptance. So you must understand, God does not judge. You send yourself to heaven, you send yourself to hell. No one is in heaven that should have been in hell because God said, you know what, I want you there just because. No. They choose it. When you have sin in your heart and you have guilt in your heart, come on. No one's choosing for you where you to go. You know where you're going to go. So no, God doesn't judge. You judge yourself. But this is what you must be careful. You have the power of creation within you. You have God within you. You have divine nature. So because you have divine birthright, you judge yourself. And it's not that the main figure of God is truly judging you, but the power and the connection he has with you. When you judge yourself, it's as if God is also judging you. So it's yes and no at the same time. You don't have a God separate from yourself that's judging your actions, saying, when you do this, you're wrong. When you do this, you're bad. You have yourself. And this is the question. Well, how about if someone does bad and they don't feel bad? You must understand that no one is above truth. Truth will determine where you go. Even if you are ignorant of it, truth will decide it. A bad person know that they're not a good person. They may not care. They may feel justified. But they have the information in this world. At any Bible or any religious text that they encounter, any story of bad versus good or good versus evil, they know most of the time which side they are on. And if they don't know, if they really are that ignorant, God has eternal damnation for them. Because the ignorance of your soul is no reason, is no excuse for you not realizing that you are in Source's world. And it has certain divine laws and certain divine mechanisms in this world for here, before, and the afterlife. Keep that in mind. So God does not judge. You send yourself to hell. You hold within your power and potential your damnation and your heaven. You decide where you want to go based upon your actions. God has gave us the ability to create and forge our spirits in a way that is acceptable for heaven or hell. And he loves us so much, he has gave us the free will to decide which path we choose. And on top of that, has gave us infinite choices, so many choices to decide to go either way. The choice is yours. Free will. Does free will exist? People, I would see this argument constantly, in the world, on the internet, casual discussions about free will. People will say, oh, it's determined. Why is it determined? Well, if God knows everything, if there truly is a book of life that has everyone's names on it and what everybody will do, How do I have free will to escape that? That sounds like I'm stuck inside a matrix. Incorrect. God, you have to understand what the variation of free will is. Okay, you must understand what it is designed to be. Okay, free will, ultimately, you have to look at it like this. You have so many choices, but so little time. You could never, in the span of your lifetime, even if you had 1,000 years, 10,000 years, 20,000 years, you will never be able to do everything in this world. And even if you were immortal, you could not choose every possibility. You cannot manifest every possibility of who you are. There are certain things that you have to choose. There are certain sacrifices you have to make. You cannot choose everything of this world. It's impossible. If you go left at that very moment, if you went left at exactly 5 p.m. 1 second, that's it. Pause the video. You could not go right or left, or if you go left, you couldn't go right in that very second. If you go right, you couldn't go left in that very second. You have to choose. Your decisions are your choices, and you have so many choices, infinite and eternal choices that exist at all points in your story. When you interact with a person, you can talk to them, you could fight them, you can argue with them, you could just walk away. There's so many choices you have to incur onto the world. You can manifest so many conceptual possibilities that exist from just your character. And it's not as if everyone has the same exact possibilities. It's not that everyone has the same choices to make. No. We all have different choices. We all, based upon our lives, who we are, our mentality, so many different variables. The totality of who we are in our spirit. Our choices are based upon that. You must understand this. So, yes, we do have free will. Free will really does exist because God has gave us infinite amount of choices to choose from. Yes, are we the sole creators of these choices? Can we do whatever we want? Can we wake up and just make $1 million appear out of the air just because we desire it to be so? No, we cannot. You must understand that free will doesn't mean absolute power. I think that's where people get confused. Oh, if I really have free will, I should be able to do what I want. Why didn't God create a sanctuary to do whatever he wants? Well, he kind of did with Adam and Eve. And the main point in relation to what I'm stating is that Adam and Eve had a sanctuary, and they themselves had a choice to be banished from it, to be separate from it, and they made that choice. How many people live in a home, had a bad roommate, had lived with parents that didn't want them there? There's many Sodom and Gomorrah, there's Atlantis, there's many interpretations and stories and tales that state humans destroying their own home. You must understand, we have free will, but we must incur the consequences of those free will. Cause and effect. We do have free will, but we are not absolved of the choices, of the consequence of those choices. We're not absolved from them. If we go left, we have to deal with all the possibilities that came from going left. If we get hit by a meteor, if we get robbed, that's our decision from going left. We don't get to just make choices, and we are void of any of the divine laws that coexist with those choices. We must understand our free will exists. We have infinite choices, and that's what free will is. But we do not have absolute power to determine the conclusion of those choices. This is one of the most common views, right? If God exists and he's all good, why did he create evil? Well, the very first statement is, why are you judging and criticizing a world you have no power to create, you can't hope to create, and it's really not your place to understand the totality of existence, because evil is within the fabrics of our existence. So is good. What you're really saying is, why couldn't God have just created a sanctuary of good so we could all live in pure bliss? Well, he did, once again, Adam and Eve. And they chose to not live there. Given the choice, well, why even give the choice? Why not just force them? God wants you to have free will. If there's only one choice to make, you may have a different, very infinite variations of good. But if it's ultimately, if you can only make good decisions, what is the point of the choice? That's like one decision. Now, when you intermix bad decisions, that creates a defiance against the previous decision. Okay, I do good, then I do bad. Or I do bad, then I do good. You start to get real experience. You start to get real choices being made. That's more real. That can be experienced on a deeper level. If there's only one, if both choices you can make were both good, well, what does it matter which choice you make? It would not matter. So you must understand that. And then you say, well, I just don't agree with that. I don't agree that the God that I love and the God that for me would have really, really bad things happening to children, happening to innocents. Know this. Yes, unfortunately, that is a terrible thing. But you must accept that this is the world God has created. He has created a world of good and evil because within his desires or within the understanding of the creation of this very world, good and evil was necessary. Everything you love about this world, all the good things are good because we have evil. You wouldn't even, if there was no evil or good, if there was no evil or bad, you wouldn't even understand what good is. You would just exist and be like, this is existence. It wouldn't feel good to you, it would just be. So it gives us a fresh experience in the world. When you live in a bubble and only good things happen to you, because that's the story of Buddha. He lived his royalty. He never went through any real pain or real, sadness and real chaos. And when he went out to the world by himself and saw how much chaos existed, he said, why? Why did so much chaos exist? I didn't think the world would be like this. Let me find deeper truth. So God, simply put, God created evil to give us a greater sense of awareness of the experience of living in this world, And unfortunately, we all have to go through it. We all have negative experiences. And most of the time is based upon our choices. And you could sit here and whine about it, but the reality is that evil will exist for now and forever. So will good. It's up to us to forge that chaos and forge that good into ways that serve us, that serve you individually, and also the grand collective, how it can serve humanity. So I wouldn't really focus too much on why did God create good and evil. Well, he did it to give us a better experience. But also, it's necessary to create the world you live in. And the world you live in is a fantasy. You're saying you don't want any good. You don't want any evil, you just want good. There's some people who don't want no good and just want evil. We have a duality. And you can choose the kind of life you have. You can have a good life or an evil life. You can, just because the world is a certain way, even if you live in a terrible world or terrible circumstances, you could choose to be good. I think that's one of the most grandest and amazing things God gave us, the ability to choose these things. Now, we don't live in an absolute bad world. God could have created an absolute terrible world to live in with no good. I'm glad he at least created both. And also, a world of just good would be kind of boring, okay? So, embrace it, accept the reality you live in, and understand God created it because he wanted to. And now it's up to you to deal with it. In closing, okay? I'm teaching you more about Source, more about God, the grand creator of all things. Source is not judging you. If anything, it's embracing your life, no matter what life that is. It's looking very closely to your reality, to the decisions you make, your reflections of God. So every story, every human experience we have of every single body are different different creations of God's story. That's why it's called the Book of John, the Book of Job. These are human stories based on their perception of God and their connection to it. God exists within all of us. Those people in the Bible, in the Quran, the ones who connected to God to a deeper level than the normal mass of people that exist, we all have that potential within us. We just don't choose it. God is everywhere. It exists within all of us. Embrace God. Accept it. Accept that there are higher forces. Many accept the Big Bang or science. Many accept, a fight on who's stronger, who can lift heavier, who's smarter. All these decisions. You are accepting that there are certain principalities, there are certain abstract or physical anomalies or physical forces of nature that exist that are above you, that are greater than you. But when it comes to God, many are losing their faith and losing their belief. Hey, I used to be an atheist. Then I was an agnostic. And now I'm a full-blown believer. And I really don't even like to call myself a believer. I know God. I know there are higher forces that exist. Even if I wanted to remove that, even if I wanted to not believe, I don't have a choice because I know it to be true. But we are all in our different perspectives. We are all in our different storylines. God reveals the truth to you when you're ready for it, not before. You must go through the experience understanding that, But embrace it. Give it a chance. Pray and see what happens. Or just say what you want and believe it. Believe in yourself. Even when you believe in yourself, you believe in God because you are a reflection of God. You must understand God is all around you. You get your power from God. You ever woke up in days you felt like you had so much energy and other days you didn't? Other days you woke up and didn't want to do anything, and then other days you wanted to go and explore the world, go on an adventure. These are expressions of God, of source within your life. Have you ever been lucky? Have you ever met someone that changed your life? How could a person so perfect exist for you? You ever met your soulmate or a person you connected with so well that it goes beyond words? There are things we cannot explain. Science may explain how, but cannot explain the why. You must find the truth to yourself. Source will reveal the truth to you exactly how it needs to be shown to you. Because you will not gain an understanding of source that is not truly through your own understanding. You may believe someone else's perspective. You may believe someone else's story to God. But true belief comes from your own individual experience. You must experience God on an individual level and understand the truth. Because God does not reveal himself or itself, the power of God, the power of creation, the divinity, your nature, will not expose itself to you in a way that you cannot directly understand. This is why in this spiritual community or this mass awakening, we got people who truly believe what they're saying, even though they become homeless, even though it goes against society, even though they're going to have all these negative circumstances happen to them. I'm reading, I read various books on the defiance of God's word, on how people try to control God's word and God's narrative for very long until we got people who fought for the truth and spread, many translations of the Bible so the common man, the common person can get their hands on the Bible and get their own interpretation. Did Jesus not say the living Bible is in your heart? Your heart is the living Bible. It's your experience. And everyone is on this divine road. Everyone is on this divine path of experience. And we must accept it. We must accept that everyone has their own way. Everyone could have a book of John, a book of Thomas, a book of, Tyler, a book of Angelina. Everyone can have their own book to the divine once they realize that they are of divine nature. But before that, you just think you're human. You don't even think you have a story to tell most of the time. Embrace it. Let the higher forces work with you. Even if you don't believe, go attain knowledge. Go obtain wisdom. If truly religion is not true, if you really feel like God is not real, go find truth. Find the absolute truth you need to be content with saying God's not real. Don't base it off of ego. Don't base it off of emotions. Truly go find the truth. And I know this. If you tell me you found it and you don't find God at the end of it, I know you didn't really look. And that's the unfortunate circumstance. God is real and all information leads to source. Now the interpretation you have with God, because many people will say, the God of Christianity won't embrace me. God will not embrace me. The God of the Quran will not embrace me. Yahweh will not embrace me. Brahma will not embrace me. You exist. If God truly didn't want to embrace you, why did he create you in the first place? You exist. Just the fact you exist shows that God has already embraced you and loves you eternally. But it is up to you to forge yourself in a way that are able to connect to the divine Lord at higher degrees. It's not up to God to come down to you. It's up to you to ascend to God. You must understand this is the truth. When you embrace God in source, you do see miracles happen. You do see that a lot of stories that are told are just reflections of God's wisdom and God's law. You must understand that the physical world is merely one world, one of infinite and eternal values. Do not be stuck in the 3D. Do not be stuck in this physical world. There are many that want you to not believe God exists. They want you to believe it's a fairy tale because God didn't come to them as they would have liked God to come to them. They wanted God to come down from a throne. They wanted God to appear when they called. God will only appear when you're ready. And if God has not appeared yet, you're just not ready for it. Because the truth is out there for anybody. But are you willing to take it? Are you willing to tap into that conceptual divine realm? Are you ready to tap into and give everything, give your all to God? Because when you embrace source, you have to give everything to God. You have to give your wealth, your ego, your temptations, your desires, your will. You must fuse it with divine will. When you embrace divine will, when you have free will and divine will, and you combine it into one, you start to see real changes, real miracles. When you do this, you walk with the Father. You are walking with the Lord. When you can understand the divine will of the world and create your free will to create divine free will, which you are making decisions based on what's best for you and what's best for God. And what's best for God is what's best for you, and what's best for you is what's best for God, because God wants you to be created in the highest form of yourself. All praise source.